Good afternoon and happy Wednesday, everyone. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You could find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. I'm here today to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS main slates on both DraftKings and FanDuel. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. Also, check the links in the description below. If you're not already a member of Occupy Fantasy, you get access as a member to the model you see here, where you can sort by ownership, value for both sites, and our proprietary OF index. We also have a single and multi lineup builder, private Discord server full of pros to help you improve your game. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, obviously, this time of year for NBA is pretty obnoxious, but at the same time, there is a lot of edge to be had if you can kind of play things correctly. A lot of teams are kind of mailing it in for the season. There's a few teams still fighting for playoff seeding. I have the standings brought up just to kind of keep an eye on things that way. 8 game slate tonight. A lot of teams on back to backs. We are waiting on a bunch of injury reports. I tried to wait a little later, get the video a little bit, start a little bit later in the day so we could have more news. And we did get more news, but there's still a lot of spots we're waiting on. But yeah, 8 game slate, a lot of speculation. I'm going to do my best to kind of build a lineup on both sites as we talk through, but just keep in mind things are going to change throughout the day. That's why there's even more reason for you to get the Occupy model here, which updates in real time as that injury news breaks. So let's get into it now. I'm going to go through game by game, team by team. Again, going to slowly build as we talk through things. First game on the slate, just pulling up scores and odds, just getting these um, matchups here. Okay, so first game on the slate, we have the Nets that are 11.5 point favorites on the road, just a 219 point game total here. So the Nets are fighting to hold on to that sixth seed. They have the Miami Heat kind of nipping at their heels. They are on a back-to-back, so we don't yet have their injury report. It does look like Dorian Finney-Smith is the one player we know who's going to be questionable. Otherwise, they should be mostly healthy. When I say mostly healthy, obviously I'm leaving out guys like Ben Simmons who've been out of the rotation for weeks. Pretty much the team I'm talking about is the team we've been seeing rolled out there on a night-to-night basis. So, Mikal Bridges, pretty expensive on both sites, 8,600 on DK, 91 on FanDuel. I don't mind him. Cameron Johnson, very high ceiling but low floor as a scoring-dependent wing. Obviously has some upside, but kind of risky in that mid 6 to 7K price range. Spencer Dinwiddie's a fine option here. Nick Claxton, it's a plus matchup for him as well. When we're looking at the game totals, though, only a 218 here. This is one of the lower totals on the slate, so I don't know that we need to rush to get to anything here. That's they're all kind of priced where they should be, but at the same time, I think they're all reasonably owned. Don't mind landing on any of these pieces in tournaments. I will say if Finney Smith's out, that should increase the minutes and usage for someone like Royce O'Neal, who looks good as kind of a mid-range value play. But there are better value spots on this slate. So as things stand, I'm not going to really prioritize anything uh, yet for the Nets. I will say O'Neal looks good, especially if Finney Smith is out over on FanDuel where he's only 4,900. You get small forward and power forward eligibility for him on both sites, which makes him even easier to get to. Bridges, Johnson, Dinwiddie, Claxton, all fine plays, but none are really priorities for me here. All right, over on the Detroit side of things, I believe they are on a back-to-back as well, so we do not have their injury report. But they're resting most of their team. They're kind of tanking. Isaiah Stewart's going to be out, and I'm pretty sure Marvin Bagley's still out. Alec Burks, Bojan Bogdanovic. So whatever's left here is going to be appealing. We have Jalen Duren and James Wiseman both in the front court, both seeing decent minutes, kind of splitting the 48, kind of seeing 24 each ish on a night-to-night basis. So I don't mind getting to either of them. Seeing tons of ownership going to Jalen Duren. I'm going to pull up the game logs for these Pistons over on FanDuel just to take a quick look at the minutes here. I guess I had Davis typed in. Ignore that. Um, but yeah, I mean, Duren, I imagine, would be seeing decent minutes coming off the bench. 35 last time out is obviously a lot for him. And then James Wiseman, who has been starting most of the time, not seeing quite as many minutes, but I mean, yeah, as the starter, he's probably a bit more secure in his role. So I don't mind Duran. I don't mind Wiseman on either site. I will say over on DK where you could play two centers. Jalen Duren as the starting center, or even coming off the bench, makes a lot of sense. Probably will get to some of him over there. I'll go ahead and pencil him in for now as a decent value play. If we're getting better value as we talk through the slate, he's the type of play I'm comfortable coming off of. But the Nets do allow a lot of rebounds to opposing centers. So Durant and Wiseman are good here. Durant a little bit safer, has been the better fantasy producer, regardless of whether he starts or not. Killian Hayes, not known as a high usage player, not really a guy who takes a lot of shots, but with so many guys like Burks, Bojan, etc. out of the lineup, it is going to make some sense to get to some Hayes. Reasonably priced on both sites, he's a fine play. Don't mind Jaden Ivey. Very scoring dependent though, high ceiling but low floor. Not the best matchup with Brooklyn when we're seeing under a 220 point game total. So I like him, but he's more of a tournament play. And then Eugene Omiyuri, if he starts, he's fine on the wing. When he has been given extended minutes, we've seen some big games out of him. But without the injury report as things stand, I don't think we can really prioritize him. So keep an eye on the starting lineup. I think both centers are viable. Wouldn't want them in the same lineup. Definitely prefer Durant as things stand, but he's also much higher owned on DK. Over on FanDuel, don't think I want to use up my center spot on either of these guys, but I wouldn't really fault you for it. And then Hayes, Ivy look fine in that backcourt. All right, so moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Bulls at the Bucks. Two teams on back to back, so no injury reports here. Um, the Bulls are fighting to stay in the play-in. Are kind of fighting for seeding with Toronto. I think they're kind of stuck in that 10 spot, so they're gonna have to win two games to even get into a playoff series. Then the Bucks are holding on to that one seed. I do imagine they'll be able to hold it even if they lose a couple games here. They feel pretty secure as that one seed, but at the same time, I don't think they're going to mail it in just yet. Not really Budenholzer's style either, so definitely could see getting to some Milwaukee. But as things stand, Giannis, one of the better pay up options on the slate. Looking at the spread here, let's go through. Bucks are 6.5 point favorites at home, 230 point game total, or 229.5, climbing to 230. I do like Giannis on both sides wherever you can afford him. Obviously, very expensive, but a very high ceiling. Drew Holiday looks good here. Much better on FanDuel, where he is only 7,700, 8,800 on DK. Tough to stomach with Middleton and Giannis both healthy and in the lineup. Chris Middleton, fine. Much better on FanDuel, though. So, yeah, 9K for him over on DK is just not a price I'd be willing to pay unless we got news that Giannis is out. Again, though, no injury report yet. Nothing would really surprise me here, but I think we have to assume everyone's going to be in as things stand. Secondary options, I mean, Brook Lopez is fine as a center play, not someone I'm rushing to get to. I think if they rest anyone going to the playoffs, it's going to be Lopez most consistently. So I like Giannis here. Really nothing else, though, for Milwaukee as far as priorities go, but definitely keep an eye on the news. They're pretty much secure in that one seed, so wouldn't shock me to see players rested, but as things stand, we really haven't had any indication that that will be the case until they've officially clinched. So I do like Giannis here. Don't mind Drew or Middleton on FanDuel, but tough to really call anything other than Giannis a priority. Over on the Chicago side of things, Levine looks fine on both sides, reasonably priced, as are DeRozan and Vooch. Those are really the only three plays I have much interest in for Chicago here. Again, no injury report. If we get word that, say, Alex Caruso's out, then maybe you could get to some Pat Beverly. But even if Beverly's getting extended run, I don't really see him as a viable fantasy option, so I'm not going to get to him all that aggressively. But yeah, I like Levine on both sides. I think he's fine. If you're playing Giannis, it makes some sense maybe to play that run back, just get a little correlation there because you're going to need a competitive game for these guys to hit their ceilings. So why not have two of them in a lineup? But at the same time, really no priorities for me here at all on Chicago. Just keep an eye on that news as we do not yet have that injury report. All right, moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Celtics against the Raptors in Boston. The Celtics are 3 point favorites at home, 223.5 point game total here. So Boston is fighting to hold on to that two seed. They are on a back to back, but they've actually already released their injury report, which is great to see, which is a kind of justifies waiting to get this out till a little bit later in the day. Al Horford's out, still no Gallinari, obviously, but Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart are both listed as questionable. So this is obviously significant. If Tatum is out, Jaylen Brown becomes one of the best plays on this entire slate. If Tatum's in, and I imagine he will be, he's a fine pay up option, but not really a priority for me. If Marcus Smart's out, we could go to Brogdon and White pretty aggressively. I think they both look really solid here. They're going to look even better if you get Smart and Tatum out, so definitely keep an eye on that situation. If Smart's in, he's fine, but not a priority. And then with Al Horford out, I think we get to a little bit more Robert Williams than we have been. Pretty inconsistent in the minutes, though. 4,700 on DK is appealing for tournaments. Don't hate the 5,800 tag on FanDuel, but they took away his power forward eligibility, so I doubt I get to him much, but as things stand, if we're assuming most of this team is healthy, no priorities on Boston. But if Tatum's out, Brown looks excellent. If Smart is out, then Brogdon and White both look excellent. And if both of them are out, obviously all the starters would see a significant boost. So another situation to keep an eye on. A lot of questionables over there for the Celtics. Over on Toronto now, I believe they are. Let's check the standings. Yeah, they're right in that 9 seed tied with Atlanta, so they're still fighting for seeding. Still have a lot to play for here. Tough matchup against Boston, though. I mean, pretty healthy team. Only injuries on the injury report. We have Gary Trent Jr. questionable. Otto Porter is out. With Trent out, that does create a little bit of extra usage for the main starters. Guys like Van Fleet, Siakam, Anunoby, Barnes all see a decent boost. Jakob Poeltl as well could see a bit of a boost, but not really someone I'm looking to rush to play at center in a tough matchup with Boston tonight. Don't really want to use up that slot, but if I am playing a Toronto Raptor, it is probably Van Fleet. I just like his price best of this group. Siakam has a similar ceiling and upside. He hasn't been hitting it as consistently, and he's a bit more expensive. So don't know that I get to him there. But yeah, I like Van Fleet. Don't mind Siakam, OG, Barnes. They're all better if Trent's out of the lineup. If Trent's in, you can still get to these pieces. They're all going to be very low owned, but really tough for me to call anything a priority for the Raptors here, even in a competitive game, just because it is a tough matchup against the Boston Celtics. All right, so moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Hawks hosting the Wizards. The Hawks are 10.5 point favorites at home. Taking a quick look at the standings, the Hawks fighting for seeding. The Wizards are pretty much out of it. So, yeah, the Wizards are shutting things down, it seems. We're going to get a lot of value from them. But I'll talk about them in a minute. First, we'll talk about Atlanta here. Obviously, waiting on the injury report. If Trey and Murray are both in, they're fine. Good plays, good payups, favorable matchup. Um, and yeah, pretty pacey spot, 233.5 point game total. If either is out, then the other would become outstanding. So definitely keep an eye on that. I will say, even with Trey in, Murray feels too cheap on both sides. I like the price on Trey over on DK as well. And then, yeah, even on FanDuel at 9,500 for Trey, 85 for Murray, totally reasonable. So decent options over there. John Collins looks fine. Sadiq Bey's okay. Would prefer to see him starting. I think DeAndre Hunter is going to be out again. That's what we have been seeing more Sadiq Bey, but his price has been rising as a result of that. So John Collins looks fine. Don't hate Bey. Capella looks okay over on DK at 6,100, where you could play two centers, but really not going to consider him a priority. If you're desperate for value, Okongwu does often outscore Capella, and you do get him at a nice discount. So I wouldn't mind using him in tournaments over on DK as well, but really no priorities for me as things stand for these Atlanta Hawks. Another team we're waiting on their injury report. Same situation here with Washington, but we can make some assumptions. They're all but mathematically eliminated. It sounds like we're gonna have no Porzingis, no Beal, and no Kuzma again. If any of those guys play, it's probably gonna be Porzingis. If he's in and the other two are out, he's gonna be a solid option here. But under the assumption that all three of these guys are out and Delon Wright's going to be out, we're going to see a lot of value opening up in this backcourt. First and foremost, Jordan Goodwin should be getting the start at point guard. I'm going to go ahead and add him on both sides. He's been seeing major usage with all the other starters out for Washington. I like him on both sides. And then Johnny Davis as well, playing that shooting guard kind of wing hybrid position. He's looked good as well. So we got Goodwin in. And then, yeah, we take a look at ownership here. Denny Avila is another guy who's expected to miss. So Johnny Davis, better on FanDuel where he's 4,200. But if he's starting and all these other guys are out, I do like him on both sites. Maybe we see more Kendrick Nunn here. I think you're probably going to want two of these three guards in most of your lineups. You're just going to kind of have to pick and choose which ones you like. I think Goodwin's certainly the safest. Davis a little bit more scoring dependent, and then Nunn's minutes have been more inconsistent than the other two. So he's tougher for me to want to get to. But just look at this ridiculous performance here. Near 50 fantasy points in just 22 minutes. So if all those guys are out that I listed, that's KP, Kuzma, Beal, and Wright, I could see even getting to three of these guards for the Wizards and feeling okay about it against Atlanta. I think in a blowout too, Goodwin and Davis are pretty much game script immune, blowout proof. They should be fine regardless. So going to get to some Davis on both sites. Going to get to some Goodwin as well. None is a logical GPP pivot, even coming off the bench. But if all those players are ruled out for Washington, don't be shy. You could play all three of those guards. Also, we have Xavier Cooks in the front court. He's drawing some decent ownership. Again, just a very, very thin team right now. Corey Kispert's been priced up. I'll take a quick look at Cooks here. Um, Yeah, I mean, with so many players out, we're seeing guys that normally wouldn't even be in the rotation getting significant minutes. He's drawing decent ownership, so I'd rather play any of these guards than get to Cooks. I'm not going to play too many Wizards, but yeah, he's at least worth considering, so I will mention him as well. But yeah, Washington, another situation certainly worth keeping an eye on. I do expect we get that news prior to lock. And then, yeah, Daniel Gafford, I'll touch on quickly here as well. Seeing increased usage, not always a ton of minutes, but he does have a pretty high ceiling. Don't mind him as a center play in tournaments. All right, moving into the 8 o'clock window now. We have the Memphis Grizzlies at the New Orleans Pelicans. The Grizzlies are 5 point underdogs on the road, 229.5 point game total here. Grizzlies pretty much locked into that 2 seed. It sounds like, yeah, regardless of what happens the rest of the way out, I think that's going to be where they end up. I think mathematically they could fall to 3 or move up to 1. Um, but yeah, they're pretty much secure in where they stand. But I'll pull them up. I don't think they're quite taking their foot off the gas yet, so definitely keep an eye on the situation. But as things stand, let's just assume they're healthy. Obviously, the front court's still banged up. We got no Brandon Clark, no Steven Adams. So we could get to some Xavier Tillman, especially on FanDuel, where you could play him at power forward. A little bit overpriced there now. We like Morant, Bain, Jackson, all fine plays. Brooks and Kennard, both scoring dependent, but pretty high ceilings. We've seen some pretty good games out of Kennard lately. I don't mind him as a last piece in at very low ownership. Would like to see him starting, though. I don't know that we get that here unless someone's ruled out. But another situation, unfortunately, we have to wait and see. Keep an eye on that injury report. Keep an eye on the news. But if this is a healthy team, I'm fine getting to any of the starters. Brooks, Kennard, Bain, Morant, Jackson, Tillman. One of those guys will probably be coming off the bench, but that whole group looks solid here in a decent spot against the Pelicans. All right, for New Orleans, obviously still no Zion. Taking a look here, they are still playing for seeding in a big, big way. Likely going to be in the playing game, but will they be home? Will they be away? That's yet to be seen. So Ingram looks good on both sides, pushing 10K though. Tough for me to want to prioritize him. CJ McCollum as well looks good here. Certainly easier to get to, not quite the same ceiling. But yeah, McCollum and Ingram look great everywhere. Don't mind Herbert Jones, Trey Murphy as secondary options. Joe Val's a good center play. Finally seeing decent minutes, but as Larry Nance continues to get healthy, we could see that capped a bit. So really, the priorities here are Ingram and McCollum. If you can afford them, don't mind Herbert Jones or Trey Murphy as last pieces in, but neither are really priorities for me. Um, do really, really like Ingram, though. I'll quickly pull up his game logs. I know he's been kind of ridiculous lately, just really putting on for this team as they head into the playoffs. It would be cool to see what they'd look like with Zion. I got an error occurring. Let's see. VPN up, that's why. So ignore that. But yeah, I mean, Ingram going to look good here. Definitely a play I'll be considering in all formats. Decent game total. Let's see if we can get that game log up now. Yep, there we go. So yeah, he's consistently hovering around 50 points. So I mean, even sub 10K, I don't want to have like too much bias in as I'm building. So maybe I do get to someone like Ingram. I feel a little bit better about him than maybe Giannis if he's going to be limited. Obviously, Giannis the higher ceiling, but at the major discount, Brandon Ingram is a play I like a lot on both sides. All right, so we can move into the 8:30 window now. We have the Dallas Mavericks at the Sacramento Kings. Kings are pretty much locked into that 3 seed. I do think they're still playing to hold on to that seed, though, and maybe potentially move up to the 2. Dallas is fighting for their playoff lives. Both Luka and Kyrie are listed as questionable. Luka, probably the best pay up on the entire board. I don't know that you can fit him with Ingram, so maybe I pull Ingram from those dummy builds I have if we want to get to Luka. Obviously, a massive ceiling though, in a great game environment here. The Mavericks are 6 point favorites because I think there's a lot of speculation that the Kings could be resting players here. So this is another situation we're really, really going to have to wait and see and keep an eye on. But on the Dallas side, I do think they're healthy. I do think they're going for it. So Luka looks good. Don't mind Kyrie, THJ as secondary options. Probably wouldn't get to much Bullock, Wood, or Hardy, but really, I mean, the 2 point guards or the two guards, this whole backcourt of Doncic and Irving looks good. Much, much easier to trust Luka, obviously, but he's also much more expensive. So in tournaments, maybe get some Kyrie, especially on FanDuel where he's only 9K flat. And if you could afford Luka, I like him in any and all formats. So now we get to talk about the Kings. Like I said, they're pretty much locked into that 3 seed, so they don't necessarily have a ton to play for. If they're healthy, they're fine. But if we get guys ruled out, we could see some minutes opening up for um, some of these backups. Like if Sabonis is out, obviously that would boost. Barnes in the front court. Trey Lyles could slide in the starting lineup. Wouldn't be shocked to see Alex Len become a starter. If Fox is ruled out, we probably got Davion Mitchell starting again. Obviously, very tough to trust, especially as chalk, but he's going to be on the floor for 30 plus minutes if Fox is out. Kevin Herter would see increase. Minutes and usage, as would Monk, as would Terrence Davis suddenly. If a few of these backcourt pieces are ruled out, I do think we see more Terrence Davis. He would become a lot more appealing to me here. But again, another situation we really, really have to wait and see. A lot of speculation that the Kings are going to be resting players here, but it's like which ones? I don't know yet. So, really tricky situation. I'll click over to them. Um, just take a look. But yeah, if they're ruling out a bunch of starters, Terrence Davis is a player I'm definitely going to have an eye on. Davion Mitchell, if he starts, is fine. And then keep an eye on that center position. With Sabonis out, maybe we see some Alex Len. Maybe it's Rashawn Holmes, who'd be tough to trust, but I'd like to maybe get to some Lyles if he starts. But yeah, this is all speculative. It's really a wait and see, but maybe leave some room for yourself to pivot with these late games. These two games have the most news that is probably going to break throughout the day because it's two playoff teams in the Kings and the Lakers that are able to rest players if they want to. So I'll use that to segue into the last game on the slate now. We have the Clippers against the Lakers. Lakers are 3 point underdogs on the road, 232 point game total here. So this is a really interesting situation. So the Lakers could technically play into the 6 or the 5 seed. Teams don't necessarily want the 5 seed though, because then you're playing the Suns in the first round. So there's some people who think the Lakers are going to rest their starters tonight. We've heard that D'Angelo Russell, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, even though there's no official injury report yet, there's a good chance they're going to be rested. They're going to give the win to the Clippers, let them climb over them, and then see if they can slide into the 6. Kind of playing with fire in that regard. I don't think they want to fall into the play-in, but regardless, this is a situation to keep an eye on. Going to pull up the Lakers now. So if D'Lo, LeBron, and AD are all out, then Austin Reeves is going to be outstanding if he's starting in there. He's been excellent even with this team healthy. He's going to dominate the usage if those other stars are ruled out. So keep an eye on that situation. If D'Lo's out, we could see Schroeder get a nice bump in minutes and usage. If they're all ruled out, I think we could see Vanderbilt and Beasley get some minutes. Troy Brown Jr. is also someone we're going to have to consider if he starts, even Wendy and Gabriel. So similar to the Kings situation, this is kind of a wait and see. So maybe build your lineups with a lot of Lakers and Kings just waiting on that news because there's going to be tremendous value coming from these two late games. It's just a matter of who. But again, we're going to have to wait and see. It's all kind of speculative to this point. Over on the Clippers side of things, no Paul George, so Kawhi looks good here. The Clippers do seem to want to play for their seeding here. Russ Westbrook's going to look good. If Kawhi were to suddenly be ruled out, Russ would become one of the best plays on the slate. We're seeing more minutes for Norm Powell. He's fine. Zubac is okay. Obviously, sharing minutes with Plumlee, though, makes him a little bit risky. Then these secondary options on the wing, like Gordon, Batum, Morris, man, they're all okay as guards and wing plays, but really nothing we're prioritizing. Obviously, this game won't be very competitive if the Lakers rest all their stars, but all the more reason to kind of wait and see what we can build there. So maybe what you do is you go ahead and, like I said, just load up on these two late games. I'd probably get Reeves into my lineup, maybe Schroeder. Um, I mean, if you pay up for Luca, you're going to have even more room to pivot if you need it. So yeah, load up on Kings and Lakers, get Luca in there, and then you could kind of mix and match that value as those starting lineups come out. You could do that on both sites. But as things stand, I do really like Ingram. I like Duren over on DK, and I really like those Wizards in the backcourt as well. So once again, my name is Nick Marro. A lot of news we have to wait and see. Keep an eye on those Kings. Keep an eye on those Lakers. And yeah, NBA is entirely chaotic for these last couple of weeks. So sign up to Occupy Fantasy, get access to the model, get in the Discord, ask your questions. And yeah, we're transitioning to MLB now as well. I'll be helping out the Occupy team with the MLB product. So all the more reason, come join us, like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone. Take care. Let's make some money. Good luck.